It's a bit late. I was still figuring out what to talk about. So, welcome. This is actually the first lecture of our chair, of the Design and Politics chair, which is a new chair at this university. For those who don't know, it's a chair. Meaning that it's paid for directly by the ministry. But it doesn't exist anymore, but they paid anyway. So it's now the Ministry of Infrastructure and the Environment. And when they were still called the Ministry of Housing, Planning and the Environment, they thought it would be a good idea to have a more direct connection between the teaching of architecture and urban planning and political issues. And so, just first to introduce ourselves being me, Samir Bantal, Tim Peters, Marta Relats and Claudia Runge of the chair, of our chair. I'd like to just show you a little bit of the kind of things that we are doing. This is our WordPress page. This is an image from the inaugural lecture. And with this inaugural lecture that we gave a couple of months ago, we tried to more or less set the tone. The tone meaning that we needed to more or less define what politics meant for us, and in which, because politics can of course be everything. Design and politics could be a kind of efficient course to help architects how to deal with politics in such a way that they might get their projects actually built. This is not what interested us. We think that's your problem. You deal with it. And also there's no manual for that. It's a trial and error. So we try to define politics in a different way. We try to define politics not as something else, as something outside of architecture, that you are architects and planners, and out there is politics, and you have to find a relationship with the politics. No, we try to put across the message that what you do is political anyway, and it has always been political, and it will always be political, whether you want it or not. That urban planning and architecture are by definition political, basically because, to put it in a very banal way, you are spending other people's money. And you are doing things that affect other people's lives, and you are making choices for people. And of course there's a very old and very important connection between architecture, planning and public life and the public sector and government, etc. So what we try to put across here is that also the innovations of architecture and urban planning have always been connected to political innovations, and that even the whole idea of urban planning is in a way was a kind of political breakthrough of the late 19th century, saying that a city is not just a result of laissez-faire, of just things happening, of the market, of industrialization, but a city can be designed, can be governed, which is, and a city, of course, the Greek word for city is polis. From polis comes politics. So in its very core, in its very heart, architecture and planning are politics, which is why we quickly changed the name of our chair from Design and Politics to Design as Politics. This is one of the graduation studios we are doing right now. Right now we're halfway. Some of the people who are taking part in this studio are present. It's about the ghetto, about segregation as an incredibly important issue in the city, something that could either be used as a positive tool. Segregation can be a positive thing because it enables people to create their own communities in their own way, but it can also be one of the biggest enemies and one of the most oppressive phenomena in the city. So this studio deals with ghettos. We have asked a very important part of the studio is that we ask people to also take a stand, to show us where they are in this discussion not to just make a design, but to first define their own political position on the specific ghetto that they are talking about. This is another thing that we do. We just did it a couple of days ago. It's our collaboration with the International Newtowns Institute, with whom we have organized a conference in the new town of Almere the day before yesterday, until Friday actually, and this with many speakers who talked about the connection between new towns and politics. For example, Azadeh Mashayeki, who's here now, she talked about the difference in the new towns that were planned by the government of the Shah in Iran, with the new towns that were planned after the Islamic Revolution in 1979, in order to show how there are connections between the kind of political ideologies, the kind of regime, and the spatial results of that regime. And one of the things I also wanted to abuse this sitting for is a new studio that we are starting actually in January already, but the information will be given more, how do you say, in a more detailed fashion this afternoon actually, at 12:45 in room Q. We will explain what we are going to do with this specific studio. This studio is set up because our chair has been asked by the next International Architecture Biennale of Rotterdam that will open in the spring of 2012 to present a rather large, ambitious project there. And this project is actually about it is about how to make cities. Which role is there still for government, for planning, to actually make cities? Or are cities completely out of our hands now? Can we no longer canalize or steer or manipulate them? Or are there still new ways of designing in the city, of governing a city, of creating policies for the city so that the city comes closer to what we want it to be? It's interesting that this is a question that 50 years ago nobody would ever have asked, because they would be sure that the question was yes, but right now it is a difficult question because most urban phenomena are so huge, so complex, so unplanned, so much the result of, for example, globalization, that there's hardly any way for us as planners to, in an important way, have an influence on them. But anyway, our idea for the contribution of to the Biennale is to have 4 couples of sister cities, and to research them in a very deep way, and also a very direct way, not in the usual Delft pseudo-scientific way, but really as real places with real people and real cars and stones and everything, and to do that in an experimental way, in a fun way, we hope, and to compare 2 cities and to kind of look at what they have in common and use them as mirrors for each other. So what we have done is we have compiled 4 of these twins or sisters, and we will compare them and create solutions and ideas for them, and maybe use solutions that people have found in Detroit and use them in Rotterdam, and vice versa. We will try to imagine what would happen to Rotterdam if it would experience the kind of things that Detroit has experienced, and vice versa. And it will be a graduation studio within Explore Lab. So both architects and urban planners are extremely welcome to join this studio, and just let us know if you are interested. As you can see, one of the titles is Inner City Blues. You all know this magnificent song by Marvin Gaye, of course. Okay, What are we talking about? We are going to talk about riots for the next 2 months. And the lecture of today has everything lined up to be a complete disaster. Because today I'm going to try and tell the entire story, everything. And it will be, the result will be so dense, so long, possibly so boring, that you will come out of it completely confused. Which is why the next 5 lectures I will just tell the whole story again, but then in little pieces. So that's the pedagogical method we have chosen here. Why this theme? Because I think the urban planners here are doing this lecture series because it's part of the series Practice of Urbanism. So which practice of urbanism are we seeing here? And why in the first place do we talk about something that seems to have so little to do with urban planning and design? Well, the reason, the trigger for this is the riots in the French banlieue in the autumn of the fall of 2005, when in the outskirts of Paris, riots started that then spread in such an incredible fast way to nearly all the outskirts of all French cities. It was a completely new thing, actually. This spreading, and there was something, and then there was a kind of weird discovery that triggered an enormous amount of preconceptions and maybe conceptions of the relationship between planning, crime, poverty, violence, alienation, etc. It turned out that without exception, all these riots happened in post-war, modernist, high-rise public housing complexes. All of them. So you can imagine who got the blame. You did. The architect got the blame. Because, especially in France, the legacy of Siam and Le Corbusier, who some French very quickly then said, no, he was Swiss. He very quickly got the blame because he is more or less, well, he claimed authorship of this model of town planning. The public housing, the high-rise objects and the Cartesian grid in the green with perfectly planned infrastructure, separation of labor and housing, of recreation and education, of green and infrastructure, etc. This perfectly laid out large-scale city plan of Siam. Of course, it was a development with many authors and a very long and complex history, but Le Corbusier has more or less become the moral author, the moral owner of this type of city, so he subsequently also got the blame. So it meant that this somehow, this hand of God automatically leads to this. Some people said this is the biggest and the most serious failure, not just of architecture, but maybe of public policy in the 20th century. Yes? You gave away the whole plot of my lecture series. Now we can stop and go. No, well, yes, of course. These are the kinds of discussions that's exactly the point that I want to talk with you about. Whether it is really the form of the architecture or it is the social context of the architecture or not. I mean, but this